Enfield case.
Today's story is different from all similar stories because it is from stories documented in audio and images, and there are dozens of witnesses from police, newspapers, and neighbors, and its heroes are still alive today. The story began from a small rented house in the London suburb of Enfield, whose heroes are a divorced woman named Margaret Hodgson and her 4 children, Peggy, 12, Janet, 11, Johnny, 10, and Billy, 7. One night in 1977, the mother sent her children to sleep early. I sat on TV alone in the sitting room. After a while, I heard noise coming from her daughter's room on the 2nd floor. She shouted for them to leave play and go to sleep. But the noise continued, and Mrs. Hodgson got up, and she had the anger and went up to her daughter's room to berate them for not sleeping. But as soon as she opened the door, she saw the girls sitting silently in their bedding, looking horribly at the heavy wooden wardrobe that had moved out of place at the wall and settled in the middle of the room. The mother liked it and slowly pushed the closet back. But as soon as I walked away, the closet moved again on its own and came back to stand in the middle of the room. It was terrifying, and the mother wanted a strange sense of somebody in the room, an invisible person. Then I heard 3 consecutive roads on the wall. Then there was a short silence. And then the roads came back, but on another wall. The mother is terrified of what is going on. She took her 4 children and went to her neighbor's house for help. The neighbor sent her husband to investigate, and this husband was called in U. He's a big, strong man who works in construction. He entered the house and checked his shelves. At first, he didn't notice anything out of the ordinary range. Then he heard roads on the wall, and he went up to the 2nd floor to look for the sound source. And to his surprise, the road's up. He followed him like a shadow wherever he walked around the house. You have the fear of the man, but he encourages and comes down to the basement, and we think that the source of the roads is probably broken in the water pipes. But the pipes were intact, yet the roads continued. The man fled back to his house. Ms. Hodgson described seeing her neighbor at that moment. "I have never seen a man so terrified in my life." Several weeks later, Ms. Hodgson contacted the British Spiritual Research Association in the hope that they would help her. The association sent 2 of its investigators, Maurice Gross and Guy Leon Playfair. They later wrote a book about her experience at Enfield. Since their first day with the family, the investigators have seen things very strange. Detective Morris says he saw Lego cubes floating in the air. When he grabbed one of them, she was hot, saw the furniture moving and walking on its own, and watched a t-shirt on the table soar into the air. The investigators quickly drew attention to the fact that most of those strange events were centered around Ms. Hodgson's daughters, especially the younger daughter, Janet. Everything was going crazy in her presence, furniture moving on its own, things floating in the air. Iron bars twist, water cups fill on their own, books appear and disappear, TV works on its own. The huge stone burner takes off from the wall and rolls up to the middle of the room. Everything was about Janet. Her family and some neighbors swore that they had seen her fly in her room. She then took an intervention in an epilepsy-like unconscious state, during which she became so powerful, she even pushed one of the journalists I chopped in the air for 4 meters. She began to speak with a hoarse voice coming out of her mouth without moving her lips. It was a voice of an old man, tired and unraveling. With the appearance of this voice, the investigators realized that they were in front of a demonic touch. So they talked to the voice, or rather to the entity that wears Janet's body. They record those conversations on cylinders, and they have come to know through those conversations that the voice owner is an old Bill Wilkins. He lived in the house years ago and died alone with a stroke in the brain. In one of his conversations, he described how he died. Before I died, I was blind, and I had a bleed on the head. I felt sleepy, and then died on the chair next to the stairs in the basement. The wonder is that Janet did not remember anything that the soul said on her tongue after coming out of unconscious or flagrant delicto. like she was drugged or asleep. In order to make sure that the girl does not make to change her voice, the investigators have her drinking a little water and keeping it in her mouth during the time the voice spoke on her tongue. They also consulted a throat doctor. He told them that it seemed impossible for a girl to make this loud voice without moving her lips, because that will inevitably destroy her vocal cords in a few minutes. The strangest thing is that a person contacted Detective Morris several months later and told him that he was Mr. Bill Wilkins' son, and that his father actually died at Miss Hodgson's house many years ago. During that period, the investigators also set up sensitive cameras in Janet's room. These cameras operated automatically in case of any strange movement inside the room. It starts with one photo each quarter. Through these cameras, the investigators were able to capture a set of images that baffled and terrified many people in England at the time. Over time, it has become an icon for all cases and issues of confusion and demonic touching. Some of these photographs showed furniture moving on its own in Janet's room. Some of them showed Janet flying in the air inside her cabin with horror and dismay on her face. It's like there's a hidden force that you carry around the room. Great power, Janet once said about her in an encounter with Channel 4 English. I was a critic of a hidden power that no one could understand. I really don't like thinking about it too much, and I'm not sure it was really evil. She probably wanted to be part of our family. You didn't want to hurt us. She had died at home and wanted to be left in peace. The only way for her to communicate with others was through me and my sister. The strange events at Hodgson's family home lasted for about 14 months. Starting in the autumn of 1978, there were occasional voices and roads, but not like before. Janet no longer suffers from seizures. She then married early at the age of 16 and left the house. In general, the future was not dignified with the Hodgson family. Son Johnny died at the age of 14 from cancer. Janet also lost her son, who died in his sleep at the age of 18. Mother Margaret Hodgson lived in the house alone after her sons left until she died in 2003. After Mother Margaret's death, the house was inhabited by a new family that also consisted of a mother and 4 children who knew nothing about the history of the house. It is not too late for strangers to revert to their heads. The mother said she felt that someone was constantly watching her. Her children said that they often woke up late at night to the sound of people talking on the ground floor, although everyone in the house was asleep. One son said he woke up one night to watch a scary man stand over his head and look at him in a strange way. That incident was enough for the family to learn her bags and leave the house without returning. Currently, the house is haunted by another family, but refuses to talk to journalists.